Billionaire entrepreneur and frequent Trump critic Mark Cuban has surprised a lot of people by giving a solid B to a new healthcare plan in the White House. In this explainer, we'll break down what President Donald Trump's proposed TrumpRx website actually does, the landmark pricing deal with Pfizer, and why Cuban thinks the idea could save hundreds of billions of dollars. First, what exactly is TrumpRx? Scheduled to launch in early 2026, the government-run site is designed to let Americans buy prescription drugs directly from manufacturers at discounted cash prices. Think of it as a search portal, not an online pharmacy. You type in your medication, the site shows you participating drug makers, and you complete the purchase on the company's own page. The program is open to everyone, not just people in Medicaid or other government plans, but it's still unclear how it will mesh with private insurance or Medicare coverage. The announcement came with a headline-grabbing agreement. Pfizer will sell a set of its drugs on TrumpRx under a most favored nation pricing model. In plain language, the United States will pay no more than the lowest price Pfizer charges in any other developed country. For years, Americans have paid roughly triple what patients abroad pay for brand-name drugs, even though the U.S. represents less than 5% of the world's population and about 75% of global pharma profits. The administration says the new policy will end that imbalance. Pfizer has already listed a few eye-catching discounts. Eucrisa for eczema, 80% off. Xeljanz for arthritis and colitis, 40% off. Zanspret for migraines, 50% off. Across the board, the company estimates an average 50% cut on medicine sold through the site. So why is Mark Cuban impressed? In his view, TrumpRx takes aim at pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs, the middlemen who negotiate drug prices for insurers, employer plans, and Medicare Part D. Critics like Cuban argue that PBMs operate behind a curtain of rebates and spread pricing that ultimately drives up costs at the pharmacy counter. He's long pushed for reforms. Scrap the rebate system in favor of simple, transparent net prices. Force PBMs to share their data with employers and manufacturers. Hand control of drug formularies to independent, patient-focused committees. Eliminate specialty tiers that justify higher copays. End confidentiality clauses that keep buyers from negotiating directly with drug makers. By letting consumers bypass PBMs altogether, Cuban believes TrumpRx is a step, though not a final one, toward that vision, hence the B rather than the A. The Pfizer deal didn't appear out of thin air. In July 2025, the administration sent letters to 17 pharmaceutical firms demanding voluntary price cuts to most favored nation levels, while dangling the threat of new tariffs on imported drugs. Pfizer negotiated a 3-year exemption from those tariffs and in return pledged $70 billion for U.S. research, development, and manufacturing. The ripple effects could be significant. Other drug makers now face heavy pressure to strike similar agreements, and every state Medicaid program will automatically receive Pfizer's lower prices, potentially saving taxpayers billions of dollars. That said, none of these savings will reach consumers overnight. The website and the new price lists won't be live until early 2026 at the earliest. Meanwhile, the trade group representing PBMs has issued a measured statement. It supports lower drug costs, but says manufacturers should simply cut their list prices. That sets the stage for an intense showdown over who is really to blame for America's high prescription bills. To recap, TrumpRx promises direct-to-consumer drug sales at international benchmark prices. Pfizer is the first big player on board, offering deep discounts. And Mark Cuban, an unlikely ally, is cautiously optimistic because the plan sidelines the PBM middlemen he's long targeted. Whether this initiative rewrites the prescription drug playbook or stalls in political and industry pushback remains to be seen. But for now, it's the rare healthcare story drawing praise from opposite sides of the aisle, and it could reshape how Americans pay for their medicine.
Dramatic video from North Carolina's Outer Banks shows a startling scene. Large, multi-story houses, beaten by relentless waves, suddenly splintering and collapsing into the churning Atlantic Ocean. This segment explores what happened, why it keeps happening, and the difficult questions it raises for coastal communities across the country. On the afternoon of Tuesday, September 30th, 2025, 5 homes in the town of Buxton on Hatteras Island fell into the sea. The collapses happened in a short window between 2:00 and 2:45 p.m., right around high tide. Thankfully, all of the houses were unoccupied and no injuries were reported. The immediate cause was a series of powerful ocean swells generated by 2 hurricanes, Umberto and Dememba, spinning far offshore. While the storms posed no direct threat of landfall, they sent waves of over 15 feet crashing into the coastline. Eyewitnesses described the sound of the homes giving way as being like bombs going off, as the wooden pilings snapped and the structures crashed into the surf. The videos are alarming, showing the houses teetering in the waves before their final plunge. In the aftermath, the shoreline was transformed into a hazardous debris field. Splintered wood, insulation, furniture, and other household items were scattered for miles along the beach and in the water, creating a danger for both people and marine life. The National Park Service quickly closed the affected beachfront and warned that more homes in the area remain at risk. This event, while shocking, is not a surprise to locals or officials. It's part of a troubling pattern. Since 2020, a total of 17 privately owned homes have been claimed by the ocean along this stretch of the Cape Hatteras National Seashore. For years, the nearby village of Rodanthe was the center of concern. Now, the focus has shifted to Buxton. In fact, another house in Buxton had collapsed just 2 weeks before this latest incident. To understand why this is happening, we need to look at the bigger picture. The Outer Banks are what's known as barrier islands. These are naturally thin, low-lying strips of sand that are constantly changing and moving. The very nature of these islands makes them vulnerable to erosion. Many of the homes now falling into the ocean were built decades ago. At the time, they were likely built according to safety regulations, situated hundreds of feet behind the protective sand dunes. But over the years, relentless erosion has washed that buffer away, leaving these homes exposed on the beachfront. 2 key factors are making this long-term erosion problem much worse: sea level rise and more powerful storms. A 2022 NASA report warned that sea levels along the U.S. coast could rise by as much as a foot by the year 2050, which will only intensify the erosion that puts these homes at risk. And as we've seen, even distant hurricanes can have a major impact, sending powerful waves that eat away at the coast. This combination of factors has created what some are calling a slow-motion catastrophe. The immediate aftermath requires a difficult cleanup, which is coordinated with the homeowners. But the larger question is what to do about the dozens of other homes that are also in danger. The National Park Service has been communicating with the owners of more than 30 threatened houses, urging them to take action before their properties also end up in the ocean. Unfortunately, there are no easy or cheap solutions. One option is called beach nourishment, which involves pumping massive amounts of sand onto the eroding beaches to build them back up. But this is a temporary fix and is incredibly expensive, potentially costing $40 million or more for a single community. Another option is to physically move the houses back from the shore.
This can also be effective, but the cost, which can be hundreds of thousands of dollars, typically falls on the homeowner. In some cases, the Park Service has been able to purchase and demolish at-risk homes to ensure public safety, but funding for such buyouts is very limited. What is happening in the Outer Banks is a stark illustration of a challenge facing coastal communities nationwide. It raises difficult questions about the risks of building in such dynamic environments and who should be responsible for the costs when things go wrong. The collapsing houses in North Carolina are a powerful, visible warning of the growing conflict between coastal development and the forces of a changing climate.
In Alaska's vast Katmai National Park, a new heavyweight champion now rules the Brooks River. After finishing second for 2 straight years, the brown bear known as 32, better known as Chunk, has finally claimed the 2025 Fat Bear Week crown. His long-awaited victory is more than an online title. It's a story of grit and survival in one of the planet's wildest landscapes. Fat Bear Week, launched in 2014, is a single-elimination tournament where the public votes for the bear that packed on the most winter weight. Before and after photos showcase stunning transformations, turning a light-hearted contest into a vivid lesson on why extra pounds mean life or death for these animals. A bear can lose up to 1/3 of its body mass while hibernating, so the fattest bear isn't just the biggest, it's the best prepared. This year, the contest shattered records with 1.5 million votes. The final matchup pitted 2 Brooks River titans, Chunk and Bear 856. When the digital dust settled, Chunk prevailed with 96,325 votes to 856's 63,725, a landslide driven as much by admiration as by sheer girth. Rangers estimate Chunk now tops 1,200 pounds after a summer feast of sockeye salmon. His size alone, however, isn't what captured so many hearts. In June, cameras caught Chunk nursing a fresh jaw fracture, likely from a mating season fight. A damaged jaw can be a death sentence for a bear that depends on tearing through salmon skin and bone. Yet Chunk adapted, developing new techniques to snag and swallow fish despite the injury. The determination to overcome what may be a permanent disability became the narrative of the season, transforming him from perennial runner-up into sentimental favorite. Chunk's journey also played out against a backdrop of abundance. The Brooks River experienced a record run of sockeye salmon, easing competition for prime fishing spots and reducing the usual skirmishes between bears. With food everywhere, most contenders bulked up quickly, but Chunk turned that opportunity into an outright advantage. His rivalry with last year's champion, the formidable female 128 Grazer, added further drama. In 2024, Grazer defeated Chunk after a heartbreaking incident in which one of her cubs slipped over a waterfall and was killed by him. Viewers rallied behind the mourning mother, and Chunk again settled for second place. That backstory lingered this season, making his redemption arc all the more compelling. When voting opened this year, supporters framed Chunk as the embodiment of resilience, injured but resourceful, relentless yet oddly relatable. By the time ballots closed, the bear that once seemed perpetually destined for silver had clinched the fattest gold of all. Chunk's win underscores what Fat Bear Week is really about. Beyond memes and viral brackets, it spotlights the fierce calculus of wilderness survival. Every pound of fat is stored energy that will sustain a bear through half a year of darkness, cold, and deep sleep. Watching Chunk lumber into his den, cheeks and belly heavy with salmon-fed reserves, we're reminded that in nature, thriving often means simply eating enough to see another spring.
So as winter settles over Katmai and the bears retreat to their dens, Chunk hunkers down as the new king of fat. His story of injury, perseverance, and ultimate triumph will echo through next year's contest and beyond, a testament to the power of persistence and the enduring fascination we share with these remarkable creatures.